The development of EDDT was really about trying to get kids supported outside of hospital around mental health crisis. And in order to do that effectively, we've developed 3 different aspects to the program. The first aspect is around the community EDDT service, where families and youth can be engaged with a support worker, can be receiving counseling and can be getting their immediate needs met around the crisis and the short-term stabilization components to that.
EDDT is an important thing to have in the community because it helps those youth that may not need the intensive support of the hospital and need more than that's offered at home. So it's freeing up hospital beds for those that are at the highest need and offering support to families and youth who need continued support and connection to resources in the community.
Youth mental health is such a high need right now, and we're seeing a huge influx into hospitals, and like the Cape unit at Grand River, for example, is overflowing, and they're finding that youth that come into hospital, they would leave and end up right back into the hospital because they didn't have any community supports or assistance with that transition.
EDDT is such an important option as an alternative to hospital. Families and youth, as we're seeing less stigma around mental health, I think we're seeing an increase in using services in the mental health system. The thing about the hospital is it really is for acute and urgent care. It's not a service that meets the needs of folks that the community is intended to support. So one of the things about EDDT is bringing the community resources to families, doing that safety planning, assessing risk, trying to figure out what other services are needed to continue to stabilize, as opposed to having to sit in an ER where people are coming in, having heart attacks, having situations where they need life-saving surgeries. The second aspect of the program is the respite service, which is attached to the community EDDT team. And that's for kids 12 and up that could really benefit from having respite and needing a break from home. And sort of some of the crisis for those folks might be related to conflict in the family. And that respite option is a safe place for them to be, where they're learning some skills and having some help communicate and being out of the environment that seems to be very stressful.
Safe Haven has 10 beds with 4 programs accessing those 10 beds. So there's emergency department diversion team, respite clients, crisis clients, and life launch clients. 2 beds are designated to EDDT. A day in the life of a youth who comes into the EDDT bed at Safe Haven can really be independently based. So we look at what their needs are and where they're at. They may continue to go to school as usual. They may stay at Safe Haven during the day, and if that's the case, then I'm working with the community mental health worker and the schools and the family to figure out what the best plan moving forward is, doing groups with them, spending time with them, doing some assessment, and also planning how can we successfully reintegrate them back into their regular routines.
The third aspect of EDDT is really the flow out of hospital, out of the CAPE program, and into the short stay transition beds here in our Woodlands environment.
The kids in the short stay program are involved in a lot of groups and services. They can incorporate DBT skills into things like self-esteem, relationships, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and they participate in those, whether it be in the day during the school program or in the evening in the Woodlands cottage. Our role really is to help with that transition so that they can gain the supports so that they're less likely to end back up into the hospital. And so far, it has been working really well in terms of reducing that hospitalization rate and re-entry into the emergency department.
The wait times in our hospital system to meet the needs of children's mental health are very high. If you're going into hospital, because there's this competition between life or death health matters and mental health matters, you're waiting a long period of time in that environment. And I don't think that's helpful. People that are in mental health crisis need connection. They need empathy. They need understanding. And while people at the hospital are certainly trained to provide those things, they are triaging for those life or death circumstances, and they can't give the connection in the same way that the people that are in there in mental health crisis might need. I think EDDT is an opportunity to really provide that connection, to be very empathic and compassionate around the needs of these families and young people that are in hospital, and to provide them with an option of support and service that's outside of that environment, and looking at support in the home, support around school, and just the community environment where people live.
The EDDT program has, I feel, done a great job with many youth that have come into our program, are learning new skills, are happy to learn new skills, and are really wanting to learn how to change how they're thinking, how they're behaving, and their own safety.
In 10 months between November 2018 and August 2019, there was 0% rehospitalization for youth that entered the short stay and EDDT programs. So I think that really shows that these programs are really supporting the youth mental health.
I think it's important to understand how hard, reaching out for help can be for people, and then experiencing hospital wait times and the pressures that happen when you go with your child who's having a mental health crisis into the ER, I'm sure can feel so defeating for families, and having to wait and you're scared, you're vulnerable. The support of our program can help to come in and understand what's needed and listen to people's stories and really figure out how to help them and how to stabilize their young person's mental well-being and figure out the kinds of other resources that may continue them on the journey to wellness.